I'd like to call the meeting of the Harwich Cemetery Commission to order at 9 o'clock on March 1st. Okay, we have, first off, we have like to welcome our selectman liaison, Julie Kavanaugh, to the meeting.
Thank you. Good morning.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
You too.
And then the first is the email from Megan Eldridge on the budget.
So I got this on, I believe, Wednesday. So at their Board of Selectmen meeting, Finance Department reviewed budget requests, and they're trying to set up dates when committees or department heads want to go in and speak to the Finance Department or the Board of Selectmen about what they asked for in the budget. So we were supposed to respond by the, after I got this, I was on vacation, so. So I don't know, we probably can still respond and say if we wanted to make an appointment.
That would probably be a good idea. I'm going to be gone from the 8th to the end of the month.
Okay.
So how do we go about setting that up? Do we talk to FinCom, or what's the protocols for that?
Julie? Sure.
We talked about this briefly at the end of our meeting last night, so my understanding is that we're going to be doing this on Monday nights. I would let, I think, Megan and Joe know what night you're available, so what is, next week is the 7th? Monday? Is the 7th. Does that work for you? Because did you say you were leaving on the 8th?
Yep.
Maybe the 7th then, see if you can get on the agenda. I would tell them, obviously, today.
Right.
And then if that works for you to get on, because that's what we're going to have to do moving forward is every week, so we get through these, we don't want to leave anything too late.
Yeah.
All right?
So how many weeks are they going to be doing them for, you think?
Well, we'll be doing them, I think, for the next probably 3 weeks. I think by the end, we've got to have everything finalized.
Right.
Yeah, so I would say, I'm just, off the top of my head, I'm thinking the next 3 meetings, that'd be the 7th, the 14th, and the 21st. But you should confirm that with
Okay.
Megan and Joe.
All right.
I mean, if we can't get Monday, then Rob could attend, because I just won't be here. I'm going to be somewhere warm.
Yes, I'll rub it in.
Okay, keep track of my list. Do you want to go over our budget stuff at all now?
So I just put it in the packet so that you guys are aware. So this is, this was an email sent out by Carol Capola, our finance director, and it is everything. So what I did was I pulled it up, and because it was very lengthy, 136 pages, I don't want to put that in your packet. So what I did was just search by the word cemetery, and every page that said cemetery, I just printed that page, so that way you guys could just focus on that. And then I highlighted on each one of those pages anything that had to do with cemetery, so that way you guys would be able to view what was going on. So they talked about the revolving accounts last night, and I'm sure they'll talk about them again, but they didn't take any action last night. I don't know if they will or they won't, but it was discussed, and they are gonna bring it back though, right, Julie?
Yeah, I believe that the overall was really just an accounting question that Dawn is looking for more information on all the different expenditures, which that's a report that, according to Joe, I believe, excuse me, will be issued at town meeting when we're voting on everything. So that summary going forward, I believe, will be delivered then. For the time being, unless the revolving accounts come back on the agenda, I believe that's the status.
Right.
But you're right, they could come back.
So they asked us to then break it down, and we all started to do that. So I'll put it in the packet for the next meeting because I didn't put it on the agenda. But what I've been doing is doing it by quarters, and I put in all of the revenues, all of the expenses, and then our ending balance for the revolving account for every quarter. All 4 of them will then be put into for the annual, at the annual meeting, so that people in the public can see what we're actually spending the money on. We did a lot of infrastructure improvements this year. We did paving. We've done a lot of stuff. We upgraded the irrigation, and just so that people are aware what we're doing. It actually helps us, I believe, because then they know the things that we're actually spending the money on and that they're needed service. If we don't have a budget for that. That comes out of our cemetery revolving. Initially, we used to get a $50,000 budget line item for maintenance for the cemeteries. And then when Paul Dome was on the commission, he thought that we should go with the revolving account. And then that way, if we bring in money, then we get to do improvements on the cemetery. So that's where that stands.
Because I think there's something in the state regs that money has to stay, what's made in the cemetery stuff for selling plots has to stay in a fund for the cemetery to
Well,
use.
that's perpetual care, and that's separate from the revolving account. So every time we sell a lot, we give a percentage into perpetual care, which has to stay in there, and we only get to expend the interest in that account. That's governed by the state, and those funds cannot be touched by anybody but the cemetery department.
Okay. Do you have any other business?
So also, if you notice, in there, both Link and myself put in for cemetery employees. Link put in for a cemetery laborer. We've only had 2 cemetery laborers for the last 20 years mowing the cemeteries. Originally, they had 50 acres, and it was 70 acres, and now it's 100 acres, and they still have 2 guys maintaining and doing all the mowing. So he put in for an additional cemetery laborer in the DPW budget, and I put in for a part-time administrative assistant for me. Both of those things, when Joe went through his budget, he took those 2 items out. As long as, he took out quite a bit of, he took 2 from building, 1 from conservation, 1 from harbor, and 3 from planning, 3 requests from planning. So I just thought I'd have him in here so you know what he's put forward to the Board of Selectmen, so that way you guys know. We put it in, but he's removed it.
Is that one that Link put in for? Is that to replace the guy that just left?
No, it's in addition to.
So there
Yeah.
should be 3.
Correct.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But it's been removed, Cindy, so
Yeah.
they'll still be down to 2. And then, also, he has changed, so in the summary of Public Works, Engineering, and Cemetery stuff, he put in this for the presentation purposes. The division will also include the cemetery administration. So I wasn't in there in the past budgets, but now they're lumping my stuff under the DPW
Yeah.
for the budget presentation. And then I just included this, and I'm glad they put it in the packet. It just shows how much funds we bring in each year for lot sales. So we, in 2017, we brought in 38,000. And then it went to 47,000, then 54,000, and 2020 was 56,000. Last year it was 79,000. We are selling a lot more lots. I think the baby boomers are aging out, and they are looking to get their forever space. So I think that that's going to continue. A lot of people now are going cremation, but they still want a traditional lot because they want an upright memorial, or they want their whole family buried, within their area. So I also included the different articles that we were awarded. So in the last 5 years, we took in $262,395, and those were in different articles from CPC to other articles that we put forward. But in all, since we've been in this department, since I've had this job, we've brought in $495,000 in additional revenue for expenditures in the cemetery. That's not budgeted items. And we're up on burials, so we had 100 burials last year. I think this year I've already have scheduled 35 burials. It's March 1st. So we clearly will be over 100 burials this year. I think, like I said, I think most of it is the baby boomers starting to age out. So I think that that's going to continue to grow, and eventually they're going to have to, you know, hire somebody else eventually, because it's going to be too much work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work now.
Okay, and then Link's looking for a couple upgrading of vehicles, and I think this is just the vehicle replacement plan. So it's in here, so I just wanted you guys to know that there's three different vehicles that Link has put in that need to be replaced in the cemetery department. The next page was the, I believe this is capital projects. We don't usually go after capital projects. We usually find our own funding for all of our expenditures. So it's been 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 going forward. We are looking to do another grant. So there's a couple that I work with the Barnstable County. They're always, I'm always reaching out to them to see if there's any grant funding that we could use for different projects within the cemetery. So I like to get involved in that stuff, so I'll continue to search for grants for us. And then the only other thing is our proposed budget. As you can see, in our salary and wages, I went up 0%, and in administrative expenses, 0%. If you look at the Munis Report, which is always kind of a little bit difficult, well, this one is actually not that bad. So it just shows that we had 0 increases for everything. And our end budget for administration is down to 0 as well. So both for for fees and for salary and wages, we went up 0. Okay? So you guys can digest that, and then if you have any more questions, we can put it on next month's agenda, or if you are thinking about going to the Board of Selectmen meeting, then we're probably gonna have to get on that as soon as we can, which will have to come before our next meeting.
Now, would it be beneficial to pursue like outside help to mow the cemeteries versus trying to get, if he wants to hold the budget down and don't have enough manpower, is that a viable option? Or what's the protocol in pursuing something like that?
So I would say, I mean, it's certainly maybe more plausible based on the budget constraints we're facing.
Yeah.
But that would obviously require getting bids and going out with
Yeah.
appropriate RFPs. So,
Okay.
you know, that's probably a little time consuming. So if you were going to do that, you should probably talk to Joe and Megan
Yeah.
and have that conversation.
Okay, maybe we can have Joe come to a meeting, we can discuss maybe how to do something like that.
Yeah. I know some other, and we went to a cemetery conference, and a lot of cemeteries, municipal ones are outsourcing. So they outsource and they just hire, they go to bid for people to do the actual mowing of the cemeteries. They still have cemetery employees who do structural things like trees and, you know, roadways and stuff like that, but they probably save a lot of money by outsourcing it and just having landscaping companies come in and maintain.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, we can check with Barnstable, because Barnstable does that, right? Just see how they go about that. And see what other towns might. Because we also found that they're changing grass types and stuff like that are low maintenance, slower growing. And we got Sean from the golf department looking into different seeds that we could start overseeding, and it'll take less maintenance just to cut back on some of that stuff, so.
Because it is a lot of acreage. So it's, you
Takes
know.
long enough to mow the half acre I got.
We go back to page 27 a second,
27.
and that the paragraph summary of significant budget increases, decreases.
Okay.
And Julie, I don't know if you have any insight on this, but for presentation purposes, the division also includes cemetery engineering snow. Is this a realignment in the works of chain of command? Who works for who?
I don't have info on that in terms of, that would be overseen by the town administrator. And obviously, any kind of changes would be brought to the board, but, that's his forte. So I would talk to him about whether or not there's any realignment.
Thanks.
Okay, any other business?
No.
Still nothing going on with the Bank Street Cemetery?
No, so it's so hard because, and they did discuss it at the Board of Selectmen last night. It's very difficult for us now that we don't have a surveyor or engineer on staff. And usually, that person handles, we've got a couple issues with some of our property. And just to even try to track down a surveyor or engineer that's got time to do it, we did have the Bank Street Cemetery surveyed by
It has cement bounds.
and it has cement bounds now. The neighbors to the right have encroached onto the property and have planted shrubs significantly onto our parcel. And we had gone to Joe and talked to him about that. And they, Griffin was supposed to draft a letter from the town saying that we have had this surveyed, you're on our property, and you need to remove the shrubs, or will remove the shrubs, or they're part of their driveway, their pavement is on our property.
It's right on the corner of the lot.
So we don't have any person to do that, and then I tried to get Paul Sweetser to come, he did do some work for us, but he's so backed up, he can't do it. But the letter really needs to come from administration and not from us. And really needs to come from like an engineer. So I don't know where we stand on that. So we did approve to have, put up a fence. I met with all the abutters. The one in the back, they were so thrilled that we're gonna be cleaning it up and that we're gonna put up it's just gonna be a split rail fence, but it'll delineate where the cemetery is, so that way the two neighbors have been using it, and there's a grave in the middle, and it has a memorial there, and they're just throwing their clippings and stuff on it. So we go in and the cemetery maintenance crew goes in and, brush mows it and does stuff like that. But once the fence is up, they'll really know where they're supposed to be mowing. So that's the issue we have.
So on that, we've got bounds, so we know we have a plot plan, at least, right?
Yes.
We've got a site plan, or at least a certified plot plan
Yeah.
of the property.
So we did send that, Paul Sweetser did send that to Griffin.
So, right now, we don't have Griffin, so.
Yeah.
So I guess the next question is if you're gonna be putting up the fence, and you're using that plan, because nothing's changed since
Right.
then the mere fact that you're putting up the fence, I mean, is that in a budget already?
Yeah. So we have the funds for that, but the thing is that we need to have somebody write a letter from the town.
Right, but.
Or maybe the town, maybe Copeland and Page.
Well, I think it's probably got to be, twofold.
Yeah.
I would, again, refer to Joe, but I would also say that it probably does need to be from an attorney.
Yeah,
And to call out the encroachment,
Yeah.
like a cease and desist kind of thing. Not
Right.
that it has to be, aggressive, just to make it clear.
yeah,
And so in that regard, I think though also, if you're going to do the fence, it's twofold. You're going to let the neighbors know that this fence is going up. That's probably just an abutter notification, right? And then you're going to use that plot plan that you have, the certified plan, to put up your fence. That's going to make the demarcation there. It's going to stop the problem, right?
Right.
But to your point, I think, you might not necessarily, or prior to going for the fence, to make it clear to the abutter that's encroaching, the letter may be necessary, but it may not be necessary, because you're putting up the fence on the town's property, and that's going to send the message. But I would definitely talk to Joe about that, because just to be a good neighbor, we may want that letter.
right.
to go to them prior to the fence going in.
Right.
But I do think it would need to come from an attorney,
Right.
not even an engineer.
Okay,
Because we want to give him the chance of moving the shrubs if you want to save
Right.
it versus us just going in and just blatantly. ripping them out.
Exactly, and not having seen, not knowing exactly the way it is, I would say that that's certainly the more neighborly thing to do. You can,
Right.
and you could start with a regular letter to say you're encroaching, here's the plan, and then if it becomes an issue, then you may need the attorney's letter. So I think you can reach out, but I would definitely talk to Joe and Megan about that and the notification that should go out so that everything's done appropriately.
Yeah.
And that you're notifying them, and then you're notifying the neighbors that you're going to be putting in the fence, and that you give them opportunity to move those shrubs. So I think that's probably your best bet. So you may not end up needing a letter from an attorney if they're willing to move them. They may be aware or they may not be aware, but once
Oh,
they're aware.
they're aware. So yeah, when we had the surveyor out there, the woman who lives in the house came over and he spoke to her and he said, this is the lot line for the town. He spray painted the street and put an arrow where our lot line was on both sides.
Yeah.
So that both the abutters would know. And, so I think they're aware. I just think that I don't know if it was an error originally way back or who knows.
And they're waiting to be told to move them, maybe.
Right.
Yeah, so maybe that's the step one is we're putting in this fence, you can move them or we'll be pulling them out. But again, to be neighborly, you can send them the notification, see what they do, and obviously that, I don't know, what's your time frame on your fence?
Well, it's so hard now because we had all those storms and the fence company is so backed up. So we've got 2 other fences that they're going to be repairing. We're doing one in Mount Pleasant that has to be repaired that we've been waiting on. It's just a small job, but they are so backed up from all those storms that we had. So many people's fences are down that.
Right, and that's the problem with the engineers.
Right.
Because I deal with engineers and attorneys all day long, and engineers are just as overwhelmed as the construction industry because they are providing these plans.
Right.
So even if you have a solid working relationship with an engineering company, you're looking at least 10 to 12 weeks out before they'll even be out to do your field work.
Yeah.
So it's a huge issue. And again, like we discussed last night, we don't currently have an engineer surveyor. We have budget issues to contend with. Do we go out with just continuing to use outsourcing the engineering services? And, right now, it's a problem for us because we can't get somebody to do it like when we had Griffin.
Right.
So, and Griffin's, was looking for the surveyor as well. So, we had a unique situation when we had Paul Sweetser.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, he worked.
We definitely miss him.
Because you drive around and there's cemeteries around that we maintain that. Bank Street, I grew up on Long Road and never knew there was a cemetery there.
Right. So we have been doing signage for all the cemeteries, and we do a new sign for a cemetery, usually at least 1 or maybe 2 a year. And we're almost caught up.
You get Kelly and then the Bank Street one if we get
Yeah.
a fence up.
Yep.
I wouldn't put a big sign there, I'd put a smaller sign.
Yeah, a smaller, yeah, definitely.
yeah, I don't know where all of them are. I'm amazed at how many.
There's a lot. A lot more than I thought before I signed on.
Robin, do I understand correctly that we do or don't have to have that land surveyed?
We already had it surveyed.
That's
It's
what I
done.
thought. We were talking about having somebody go out to do something, that was a holdup on it at one time.
So we needed, well, Paul recommended that a letter come from the town engineer stating that it had been surveyed and that they were encroaching, and that he said that he didn't think it should come from us, that he thinks it should come from somebody from like engineering or.
Right. So, and I think that, I do think that, whatever the letter is going to be that comes from whoever.
Right.
I think personally, though, an engineer, it's fine, but I think if you're going to go through the town administrator's office and
Right.
that, which is the way it should go, that the notification probably should either be like I said, a notification from the town officially saying this is happening, but if we really, and again, you can do it twofold, I think, in terms of notifying them as a proper notification from the town, provide the plan, show the bounds, and show, and, you know, photos of the encroachment. You know, if that doesn't work, then.
He actually drew the shrubs
Right
on the plan.
Oh,
They're
good.
right on the plan.
Okay, perfect.
there's
So
no
then just
question.
a letter with the plan. And again, Joe may feel that rather than even do that letter, he may feel that go have an attorney draft the letter.
Right.
It's not difficult. I'm just saying in terms of money, you know, it saves some money to not involve an attorney. And if they understand that it's, you know, certified letter coming from the town telling them that they're encroaching on the property, that may be sufficient.
Right.
If it's not sufficient, then you're going to have an attorney, and Joe can do that. But I'm thinking step one may not be to have to get the attorney involved. If it's a certified letter from the town with the plot plan and the encroachment shown, that may be sufficient.
Okay. All right.
You can get a little
The
packet.
reason I mentioned that was, I think it was last time we met, I told you, I believe there was a certified engineer, surveyor that was available. He has done work for the town,
Yeah,
so there is somebody else available,
okay.
just to let you know.
And he can do work like now? Because every department will be calling him because every department's looking for engineering right now.
He's worked for the town, so I'm assuming they know.
Okay.
Someone knows.
Now we're on to the rules, regulations, renew.
So, we had a procedural question. So this, I put in our existing approved rules and regulations, and then this is what, the Cemetery Commission has done a deep dive into our rules and have looked at all the other towns and what the other towns are, defining as cemetery rules, and they just wanted more clarity because they felt that some of our rules were, could be,
A little pushy or not written very nice, because you're in.
yeah. So they wanted to clean them up. So anyways, so,
More explanations and stuff.
so normally, in the past, when I've put it in as an article, and I've sent the entire packet to, Joe as a space holder, so that he would know how long it was. But what we normally do is, they have a cover page now, I don't know, and we also have a table of contents. I don't know that that needs to be approved. I know that the book is gonna be, for the warrant will be huge, so I mean, I don't know which pages need to be in there. But this does have our mission statement on it, the cover page, which they kind of wanted in there.
Yeah, well, I would give all of it and decide what needs to come out.
Okay.
If anything's, whatever's being struck is being
So,
revised.
yeah, but it's totally different now. It's like you can't even merge the two because they're completely different.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying? So we're trying to figure out how, I mean, do you put this whole thing in and then just strike the whole thing out?
Well, they may be able to take the new one,
Yeah,
reference this one and say that that is being struck and replaced by, but again, I'm not
Right.
a warrant person.
right.
So I think that you probably need to ask the question.
So some of them are very similar. I mean, the active cemeteries, inactive cemeteries, the administration part, I think is pretty, the headstones and markers, we have, it's kind of,
We tweaked it a little
Yeah,
bit, made
We
it more
we tried to
explanatory.
get more specific based on incidents that Robin has had to deal with.
right. Well, people
I
have
hate to
come,
use the word firepower, but it really is to say, well, it says so right here, and that's why we do that. As opposed to, well, it kind of says it here, so that's sort of what we do.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And so, again, just to be official, because, you know, obviously the warrant is a legal document.
Correct.
So I think that you need to just ask the question is, can you refer back to the previous if everything is different?
Yeah.
If this is replacing it,
yeah,
to reduce the size?
Yeah.
Can you refer back to the previous, or does that need to be incorporated to then show how much it's changed? This is replacing this document. I'm not sure on that. You may be able to just refer.
Yeah, Robin had said historically it was this paragraph lined out and now this, but
Right, but when it's a whole document,
Yeah, that
you're
would-
replacing the entire document.
correct.
And so an attorney may say, it needs to be in there to cross-reference, but it may not be. If the whole document is replaced by this new document,
Right.
you may be able to reference the previous document dated such and such a date is now replaced by the following,
Okay,
and then you would have to include
Okay.
all of that.
So who do we check in with on that?
I think I'm gonna have to put this to Joe, right?
Yes, I
Okay,
would bring that to Joe.
okay. So what I'll do is I will send him both of them, and I'll tell him what we've discussed, and say, is there any way to reference, this is a brand-new document replacing this document.
But the main body of this is still in here, we've just reworded it.
I mean, and proceed, the warrant is published
Correct.
in advance, so there's
Correct.
plenty of time for the
Right.
public to
View.
read them.
Yeah.
And if they want to go back to the original and say, well, this is what it used to say, and
Right, and that's to the point I'm making, is that they may say legally, you need to incorporate,
Right.
have the full.
Oh, I can see that,
previous one. I
yeah.
can too, because if you're picking up the warrant article, to go to the meeting, you may not
Have the old rules,
which
yeah.
is why the two may have to be.
So, I mean, they've done in the past, like, I think the first one is the first one, so.
Yeah, I would just ask Joe to clarify that, because, get both in or just the new document.
So I have to tell you that I had an incident in the cemetery, which definitely is one of the reasons why we had changed some of the language. So on not this past Saturday, Saturday before, I had a funeral in Island Pond. And while the service were going on, this gentleman came flying down the hill in one of those stand-on skateboards, woo, woo, like making noise. So I went over to him and I said, excuse me, we're having a funeral service going on in the cemetery, and I'm asking you to refrain from that activity. And he started swearing at me, and the 3 grave diggers that were there jumped out of the car and ran up behind me, and I said, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave the cemetery, or I'm gonna have to call the police. And I did call the police. So, oddly enough, he walked back up the hill, and I thought he was with 2 other, there was 3 people there. So I assumed they were all younger people. They were all masked and bundled up. It was probably 15 degrees. It was, to be perfectly honest, it was extremely cold out. I'm like, I can't believe they're even out here. But it was a husband and wife and their son. So the son was about, I'm going to say 10 years old. And the entire time, the guy's swearing and giving me the finger. And I took a picture of him. When the cops showed up, I said, this is the guy. And that's him giving me the finger with his son by his side. I mean, it was very disturbing. And the poor family is trying to have their services, and this gentleman who was obviously an adult, acting so,
Childishly.
I was very upset. But I was glad that there was 3 guys there from the crew, and the minute they're like, is he swearing at you? And I jumped right.
And what
And they
day-
came right over.
this was on a Saturday,
Saturday, yeah.
outside of your work hours.
Well,
I'm throwing that out because our liaison's here, and
Yeah.
we know your history,
yeah.
part of the Julie Education Program.
So a lot of my funerals tend to be on Saturdays. I have to say, I probably I work at least 2 Saturdays in the winter time, a month. In the summertime, I work every single Saturday. So, I mean, I sometimes work Saturdays and Sundays. So a lot of people will do their cremation burials in the summertime, and they're down for the weekend, or they're down whatever, and they're just trying to make it convenient for them. So I have to say, in the summertime, it's pretty much work every day. So, and then, so what I'll do sometimes is I'll just work a half a day on a Tuesday, but it'd be nice to have a couple days in a row off. So, I mean, that's why we kind of want to have another person, even if it was a part-time, even if it was 15 hours, so they could cover the days that I'm not, if I need a day off.
It's not too much.
So I have 4 weeks vacation that I get because I've been at the town for 18 years now. So I still have 3.5 weeks left to take, and it's almost the end of the year. My son is getting married, so I am going away for a week, and then I'm going away for his shower in a week and a half. But I mean, I'm gonna have to start taking all that time, and somebody's gonna have to cover. When the DPW covers me on a Saturday or a Sunday, they get time and a half, minimum of 4 hours. So I think that, not that I'm saying,
And if you're not here,
if I'm not here, they have to cover.
and who is legally responsible to identify a grave space and to authorize the paperwork?
We've had a few incidents where I was on vacation once and they dug the wrong grave. So,
So
they
what
did
we-
call me and take photographs, and I said, that's the wrong grave. So I'm on my vacation, and I'm like, you better get the grave digger back there before those people show up in,
I still got this.
So this was the importance of having that line item, not to go backwards in what we're talking about. I mean, it is so critical to have that person in the office, otherwise the cemetery operation shuts down, completely shuts down.
so they did end up fixing it, and probably an hour before the burial actually took place, and then when the lady showed up, she said, how come there was another grave dug right next to, like, in the 2 lots over, you're having another service? And the guy was like, no, the wrong grave was dug, but we fixed it. But I'm like, but they could have desecrated somebody else's lot. That's the thing. So they don't know, sometimes if somebody's already buried in that lot, if there's no headstone there, they could have physically
Dug up somebody.
So you really need to make sure you dig the right grave. But they're not, and they're not trained in that, so that's the problem. So,
It'd be nice to have either another employee or person to work with her that understands everything, and someone else in the town that can know exactly what needs to be done, just in case.
yeah,
Because if we bury someone in the wrong place, I think that's just a mess ensues after that.
Well, and
Yeah.
what Robin alluded to, what if they dug the wrong spot, unmarked, and up came?
right.
Uncle Rob.
Could have been a catastrophe. It was averted, thank God. But I mean, so that's, every time I'm on vacation, I get phone calls. 3 years ago when I was in Ireland, I went for 11 days. Literally, I had phone calls every single day. I was like,
And after, in the evening, you're dealing with families,
right,
setting up arrangements after 3:30, 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night.
yeah,
It's a job that just doesn't end, and I just don't think people realize that, when it snows and Link's got to spool everybody up, everybody understands that. But the cemetery is a quiet operation that happens in the background. Nobody thinks about the cemeteries unless you're about to go there.
No, you're right. I know. It's not an easy job either.
And that's, I brought this up at one meeting, that's an unidentifiable trait of Robin's job, is the dealing with families. I mean, she could sit behind a glass wall and go, okay, fine, thank you, stamp, take your check, we're done, nice talking to you. Oh, I'm on break, see you in an hour. She doesn't do that. She's on the phone constantly. She deals with the families as if she's the funeral director or the pastor. We can't quantify that, but it has to be somehow quantified in 8 million numbers.
Yeah, and actually, I'll just go back. Just to stay on track, I have to head out, but I also just want to point out that maybe, we want to loop this into our discussion on the regulations because, it's not necessarily our discussion that is on the agenda. So I think we can say that this is an extenuating conversation about the regulations.
Right.
And how we address the position.
right.
So just to make that clarification for the public, that's how, we're off on this because we're talking about the regulations, but in those regulations, we have a cemetery employee who is doing an extenuating amount of hours that are really not captured, I think, probably. And I can't say this specifically because I'm not looking at your job description,
Right.
but I would imagine is not really captured in the description. So that's a conversation that I think, the board needs to understand better. The hours, the vacation, and who's covering when you're not here.
Right.
And the issues that may arise from that, as well as, weekends. And in my opinion, I don't get to take a lot of vacations, but when I take a vacation, it drives me insane when I'm getting barraged with emails and texts. So that's not a vacation.
Right.
So I would just make that final comment and say that I appreciate, I know you work very hard, and it is in unique position.
Right.
Other people aren't dealing with death every day. You are. And I know it's a job, I
Yeah.
get it, but it's a piece of the job that some of us are probably not appreciating to the extent that it should be.
Right.
So I just would like to say that. And I do have to head out. I have another meeting at 10.
Yep.
It's, as you say, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that not everybody understands. And luckily, not everybody has to on a daily basis. They maybe deal with it once in several years, but this is going on every day. So I appreciate all of
Yep.
what you do. And I appreciate all of you volunteering for the commission. It's really important. So, thanks.
Can I ask you a quick question? Do most departments have somebody that's cross-trained for their administrator or whoever's the head of that department?
So, unless Robin's position is unique in the sense that, she's at a position where she is the one.
Right.
And so I could say probably, again, within the departments, I'm sure that the admin staff and such are cross-trained to the extent.
Right.
But obviously, somebody at the managerial level doesn't necessarily have somebody cross-trained in their position. Now, if that person's out, they've got people below who can help. But if the building commissioner, for example, goes on vacation, he more than likely has brought somebody in, or he has an inspector who can support some of the questions they would not be able to address. Same as the health
What
agent.
happened when she was away.
Right.
And they wanted us to step in, and we're not,
Yeah,
we're not
no.
knowledgeable
No,
to
nor
do
are
all
you
that.
paid.
Megan tried it, and Megan couldn't do it either.
Yeah.
This is why I realize that you understand that she does need to be.
Yeah, no,
Have some-
anybody should be able to have somebody stand in for them when they're on vacation if there's nobody else that can do their job.
Right.
You
Thank
know.
I'll let you go.
Yeah, so,
Thank you for being here.
thanks. Take care.
All right.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Can I have your weapon back?
I can have my weapon back.
Thank you
So-
for not
so-
throwing it at me.
So, I will, reach out to Joe and I'll show him both of them and ask him what we have to do. We'll have to do what we have to do to get him in, so you guys work so hard that I think that they need to go in.
Yeah, well, I mean, just personally, I would think that both would have to be there because it's a legal document
Right.
and the warrant's a legal document.
I mean, if worse comes to worse, like the rules are basically the rules we've added to it. We could put this in here. This new group of rules is a modification of this set plus additions.
Yeah, I
And
don't-
just take that section
Oh, we could do
and,
that.
and stick it in.
Yeah, because instead of going paragraph by paragraph, we could, the
Unit-
flow is almost the exact same.
Yeah.
This was expanded or whatever.
And then we've added all new sections, like the whole beginning several pages. But like for rules, take those rules, okay, we've added more to these.
Something,
To
I'm not
clarify
a
it.
huge town meeting fan, just because sometimes the discussions get,
Drawn out.
yeah, everybody just wants to say their 2 cents, But should we be prepared to,
Yeah,
as a team, stand up
Yes.
there and
yeah,
As
the
it-
three
That
of you.
gets closer, we may want to divide certain sections so that we're subject matter experts, or whatever we used to call it back in the day,
Yeah.
and then, I mean, would you be answering those questions too, or is that incumbent on us?
It's gonna be mostly you guys, but if you guys need me to answer questions, I can answer questions as
Well,
well.
I mean, certain regulation technicalities,
Right.
I would think you would be just more experienced at handling.
Right.
Otherwise, I think the rules came out really nice.
I think they did too, I mean, yeah.
They look nice, they really do.
I know she just left, but thanks for getting Julie here,
Yeah.
you know, just to see what's involved, yeah.
I'm kind of bummed she missed the little Arboretum thing, though. I'll have to reach out to her about that. The next, do you want to move on to the
Is
next?
the end of the year totals and the revolving?
Yeah, so I just put these in here because I think this is, I'm gonna then break this down, and I'm gonna put this, in the, book for the warrant. So I'm gonna divide it by what was engineering cost, what was, tree removal, what was, so I'll have those categories broken out for you guys, so you can just view that at the next meeting, so you know what's going in the, that will be handed out at town meeting.
Can you just translate, what's the IPEV?
Island Pond, Mount Pleasant.
Oh, location.
So what I do is I just kind of track, what cemeteries, the different burials are going in, just in case we ever want to, the majority of them are going Island Pond or Evergreen. I mean, those are our two biggest cemeteries, and, they're both over 20 acres each. So, I mean, there are a majority of them, although Mount Pleasant gets a lot of burials. It really does. And then I would have to say, then it would be followed by Pine Grove. Pine Grove was really, it was slow when we initially took it over, but it has really, we have a burial coming up there this week, so. We get more and more of that, and I think South Harwich, we have that whole section that we expanded when we got that land swap from the neighbor there. I think as they start having more and more events over at the South Harwich Meeting House, I think more and more people will be purchasing lots there. I had quite a few people have burials there recently, but I know that there's a whole bunch of people who are especially on that committee that will be purchasing lots in that cemetery.
Now, is there a list somewhere of where all the vacant lots are? And
So, yeah, and the only other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about are, we still have in our revolving account balance, right now, we have $84,000. I'd really like to add another one of do the same cemetery mapping thing that we did at Island Pond with all of the residents, with another one of the cemeteries. And I was gonna ask, the web design company if they could give us a price on doing either Mount Pleasant or Evergreen. If we did Evergreen, they could do mapping so that if somebody, say if I was on the weekend and somebody was in hospice and they're like, oh, we already have the ones for Island Pond, the lots that are available in there. But if we had Evergreen, what could potentially happen is if somebody was at, in a hospice bed and somebody had a tablet, they could pull up the tablet and say, this is the Evergreen section where we have lots available, this is what it looks like, and they could do 360-degree views, or if somebody wanted to visit there. I do have more requests for Mount Pleasant than I do have for Evergreen in the summertime for visiting. A lot of people visit Tip O'Neill's grave, and there are a lot of political figures that are buried in Mount Pleasant, not just Tip O'Neill, but the guy that was in charge of the orchestra for Washington, D.C., he's buried there, and a lot of musicians want to go and that played want to go and see his grave as well, which is right next to Tip O'Neill's. Tip got him the job, apparently. So, it doesn't cost a lot more money. It's a smaller amount because now the app is developed. But then you could just add on to that app. So when the app came up, it now says the town of Harwich, and the only thing on there is Island Pond. But when we start to add these other cemeteries, it'd just have another drop down. So if you wanted to do Island Pond, you would click on Island Pond. If you wanted to do,
Wasn't that the plan in the first?
yeah, it was the plan. But so I just wanted to know.
So what's the cost?
So do you want me to ask them for both or one or
I would,
another?
because Mount Pleasant isn't a huge cemetery.
No, it shouldn't take them that long.
So if we get the main structure, all this down,
Yeah.
why can't we just go, okay, here's 2 cemeteries, you can break it down, because then we're not paying for the guy to come back to do this, he's here already. He
Yeah.
can do Mount Pleasant, Island Pond, the next time he can do Pine Grove.
I'd really like to know the cost to do it all,
Okay.
broken down per cemetery, and then we go from there.
Okay.
I mean, not to be irresponsible with,
Yeah.
this would be revolving account, I believe, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so not to be irresponsible about that,
Right.
but I think you could make arguments for priorities like you just did
Yeah.
for Mount Pleasant. And then with the Veterans Memorial, when that's complete, I wouldn't
Right.
do Evergreen until that, we
Yeah.
were done
Right.
there. But there's certainly other options, I mean, other locales that would.
Right, and some of those.
Summer with
Some of
North
those,
Harwich.
yeah, some of those smaller cemeteries, he really wants to do North Harwich. He loves the history there. We're gonna be having the Civil War thing there this summer. There's a lot of Civil War veterans there. So, he wants to do that one because he's kind of history buff. So, for him, he, you know, likes the older.
So maybe get a discount for North Harwich.
See what it is if he comes in and does everything at once.
Okay,
You got Kelly Street, North Harwich,
yep.
Mount Pleasant, Pine
We got the
Grove.
West Baptist Church.
Well, and
That's our
the
domain
very,
now,
the very small historical ones,
Yeah,
I mean, there are a lot of sites that should be recognized,
right.
you know, for the genealogy side of it.
Correct. All right, so I will look into that. I just, you know, if it goes above a certain cost, though, then it would have to go back out to bid. So,
If it's done individually,
I don't know, I'm gonna check with the procurement team. I don't wanna do anything that's
maybe you could just
be
start with,
misconstrued.
if he could break down the rest.
Okay.
Granted, that's gonna change, you know, 2 years from now if we can't get to the last couple.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Excuse me. So
Okay.
those numbers would change.
all right,
But if we were to be able to snap our fingers and say, do it this summer, everything, which I can't see us doing, but
yeah,
Right.
at least we would have a set of numbers that,
And then if it's
I
a,
know, we'll be in, kicking into high gear, the Veterans Memorial Circle.
Right.
And I'm still finishing up on a couple more of the veterans. I did find a couple recent ones that I didn't know that were Revolutionary War veterans. So I want to make sure that we have that list completed as well when we do that. Even though that's not part of the flag thing, I kind of want to make sure we move forward with that by October for next year's CPC article, because I think that's going to be a great thing for the town when we finish
yeah.
that project.
absolutely.
Yeah.
and how are we doing with that, the flag base and stuff? We talked about ordering that and getting
So
that.
we did talk, yeah, so I had put in a request about getting the base, and that was $20,000. They did reach back out to me, and now all of their costs are starting to go up, and they're extremely backed up. Because there's been an increase in deaths, not just for Cape Cod, but everywhere, the monument companies, because they were shut down for a little while because of COVID, are so backed up with their regular memorials that they're behind. So they're behind, and now they say the price might go up. So I might have to go back out and ask them again what the cost is. So I might have to rebid that because they can't, you know.
Yeah.
It was over 30 days, and he said, well, we only do those for 30 days. I said, but we were ordering in it. And he said, well, we didn't receive a deposit. And I said, well, we're a municipality. We had written you a letter, but I'll have to reach out to them so that doesn't happen again. So if we do get a new quote for them, and it's roughly around the same price, it's not the price of the memorial. They were charging us a fee to deliver it from Vermont to the cemetery on a truck. And now because of all the gas prices and everything that goes along with that, it's those prices that they can't guarantee.
Which is understandable.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to go back, and he did reach out to me, though, actually, just like a week ago, and said, we need to talk about this because it's not ready, because we're so far behind. And I said, well, what's the estimated date of delivery? And he said, well, we're gonna have to redo the price quote because we price quoted you on fees that we had established last year, and now gas prices have gone up astronomically, and heating prices, which have now increased all of our costs. So all of our costs are now changed. So I'll get another price quote from, you know, I would really love to have that base. I just think it's absolutely beautiful. But if we can't, and it gets too, you know, outrageous of a figure, we can still do it without it. I mean, I
The only thing
want,
that should change is the delivery,
yeah, we're hoping.
because the cost of goods sold should not have changed.
Right. But I will,
Didn't come from
No.
Norway.
no, the rock is coming right there from their quarry, so, I mean, it shouldn't change. But I will reach back out to them and get a new price quote for you guys to view at your next meeting. Because I really think we need to get that
That's gonna
delivered.
get
You know what I
going,
mean? So if we're gonna do that, we gotta get it delivered.
So we can get it here and get that part ready for next October.
Right. So we really would like the whole thing finished by September, so that way it's in, and we can do a dedication, but then have our first service for Veterans Day. But I'd really like to do the dedication well in advance. I don't want to be stressed out leading into that.
Then we need to work on getting somebody lined up that's gonna do the brickwork and all that other,
Correct.
get all that
Correct.
stuff done.
So normally, Paul was supposed to do an engineered plan, how the bricks were going to be laid out. I'm gonna reach back out to him again, see if he's caught up. He has the program to do that. If he can't, then maybe we can reach out to,
Paul actually knows him.
oh, he does? Yeah. Okay, perfect. All right.
You could ask him if you could ask Tony to help him, maybe.
And then we get the Arboretum software information sheet.
Yeah, so I made this information software sheet, and I'm gonna send it to Caleb after the meeting, so after you guys approve it. So I just wanted you guys to look at this. So this, if we put on the town website, this will just help people be able to download the app, and then that way they'll know how to do it. So it's on the App Store, and then Google Play. So depending if you have an iPhone or a Droid, you can download the mobile app. I've had several of my garden club friends download it and they love it. So, and
It
people.
works too, because we used it the other day, Kim and I were walking around to look for a classmate of Kim's that died in high school.
Yeah,
And it brought us within, like, the length of the table to that spot.
yeah. So I mean, as we go in and we add more actual pictures of the stones and stuff, when we take the pictures of the stone, we actually, the picture has the GPS coordinates. So as we tighten up all those GPS coordinates, so now it's within so many feet, but eventually it's gonna be to the inch. So, I am gonna, have a little training for anyone who wants to volunteer to help with us do that, so that way they can do, help us import some of the records, on some of the grave spaces. It'll just make it go easier, because what he does is he just takes my database, it has addresses, so he dumps all that stuff in, which is how it gets you within a certain distance from the grave space. But if we really want to get it to be precise, you really need to take the photograph and then, save the GPS coordinates with the photograph.
I think it came out,
Okay?
nice.
So this just talks about how it's, right now you can either go to islandpondcemetery.org or you can go to marcelinearboretum.org. Those both point to the app now, which when the app comes up, it says the town of Harwich, Island Pond. So that way when we add the other cemeteries, it'll say the town of Harwich, Mount Pleasant.
What about having, just along these lines, what about having and I forget what they're called, those new fancy square barcodes, a sign
QR
at
code.
the entrance to the cemetery and the arboretum
So when,
says,
if you want to.
yeah, you just take your phone, you point it at that, and it
So
pops right up.
we are gonna be doing at the pollinator garden, which is at the entrance, which we have all different types of plantings there. I was at New England Reprographics picking up the signs for the trails, because the AmeriCorps members are going in on Thursday to cut the trail down. So if you guys are free, want to come out, it's going to be cold though. They'll be doing that on Thursday. But they had on their wall a color laminated thing that they had done for one of the seashores, which had birds and all sorts of stuff and descriptions and stuff. I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. So I kind of want to get something similar to that at the pollinator garden, which is kind of, and if you've been on any of the trail systems in different areas, they've had them, sort of would be on a piece of wood. It'd be like underneath, kind of like a laminated type of stuff. But we could put on there the pollinator garden, a map of the cemetery, but we could put the QR code. Is that what you're looking for?
QR code.
So the QR code for the app on there, so then they could just click on that, and then it would bring them to the app. So it's just gonna have, it'll just be welcome to the Island Pond Cemetery, Marceline Arboretum, and then it will have all the different pollinators there, but it'll also tell you where the other gardens are. So the native species garden that we're gonna be planting later this, in the spring with the AmeriCorps, I had reached out to Agway, and they're gonna help Maddie, that's what she's working on today, back at the office, on the different species that they're gonna be putting in that garden, and they'll all be planting those. So we wanna do something similar up there to identify, because it'll be, you can't put signs on every single plant. This way it'll have, which each one of the plants are, it'll say what it is, so that way, it'll just make it easier. And they'll say, this is our native species garden.
I just think that if somebody is driving into the cemetery or the Arboretum,
Right.
that they see that, as opposed to having to pull off and actually look at the
Oh, so you want,
laminated,
so-
just a little tiny,
okay, so you want, like, underneath the sign where it says,
well, even right next to the nice sign that
Yeah.
says the cemetery, I mean, just off to one side so that
Okay.
it doesn't distract.
right,
And, I mean, I don't know how you'd want to label it.
right. I think anyone
Download a map.
anyone who sees one of those, they know what it is. So, I mean, we go to any restaurant now, that's what you do to get the menu. So, I mean, a lot of places don't even have their menu out anymore. You have to do that.
It's a lot easier for younger people to operate than us.
I know.
Yeah, I resemble that.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right, so we'll look into that.
Yeah, I just think it's a
I'll ask
nice
Steve
touch.
about that. Okay, and I think,
So you're gonna go for new bids on that stone? Was there
Yep.
something we had to approve? We have to
so
approve
we-
those, the
so we have,
rules?
I'm sorry?
Do we have to vote to approve, to accept these rules as written now to?
Oh, yeah. So you guys do have to approve the final draft of the,
No, we haven't merged the old and new together.
no, but you're approving what you want to move forward at town meeting. So somebody needs to make a motion to approve.
We have a motion.
Before I make that motion,
Yeah.
being the resident expert, are you happy with the way they came out?
I think it's, yes.
Factually.
Yes, yes. I think you guys did an amazing job. I think and I think it's a lot easier for people to follow. And I like the way that you guys set the tone, so people know that we want this place to be respectful. I mean, we want people to enjoy the cemeteries, but we want them to be respectful, just like that gentleman was not. But I think for the most part, most of the people who go into the cemetery want to go there to relax, and we want people who are visiting their loved ones to be able to enjoy it and not be bullied by somebody skateboarding next to their grave and swearing and,
In that case, I make a motion that we accept these rules
I'll second it.
pending town meeting approval.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Right?
So approved. That was a huge project done.
yes. So we have bills. We have, arborist went in and cleared up, some more trees that had hangers. There was a ton of them that happened, not this,
Broken branches type thing?
Yeah.
yeah, like they were really dangerous. So we had them go in for a day, in Island Pond, and then they ran over to Mount Pleasant, because Mount Pleasant had a couple too. So that was $1,700. We had Reprographics did signs for our trail system that connects
How many signs was that?
that was 2 signs.
I think that's very reasonable.
Yeah, so, and they're, one of them's double-sided, and they're back in my office, so the AmeriCorps will be installing those, so that, for the entire, because AmeriCorps is free to do that, so for the entire project, to create the trail system, put up the signs and everything is costing us $116 and 52 cents,
$16.
and 52 cents.
So,
Two signs. and
yeah, so
all
that's
that.
what I mean, so to go backwards to the QR code,
Yeah,
once we figure out how to make a QR code that references that,
yeah,
I mean, I think having a good quality sign that a camera will recognize as opposed to some Xerox job that we stick under
Right.
place. I think that's. we
yeah,
should
they're really
have them
nice.
do that, yeah.
And they're big, and they're heavy-duty, I mean, they'll withstand anything. So, I mean, you could order like flimsy ones off, but they wouldn't last. These are like industrial steel, and they're laminated. So then I also did my mileage, which I haven't done in a while. So I did November, December, and January. So November it was 63.84, December was 106.40, and January was 48.16. So I will pass these down so you guys can peruse those. And then we had, I sold 3 cemetery lots since our last meeting. They were all in Island Pond, and one was a single grave space for $800. One was 2 grave spaces for $1,600, which were Harwich residents, and then one was for the Harwich residents' mother-in-law, mother and father-in-law, which was 3 graves for $2,700. So it's a different rate for non-residents versus residents, which I also broke out when I do the revolving account. So when I do it, I write cremation lots, and then I write residents, how many we sold, and then cremation lots, non-residents, and then traditional lots, single spaces, how much it costs, and then the double spaces if they're residents, double spaces if they're non-residents. So then that way, when people look at it, they know how many residents and non-residents. Some of the non-residents, though, are people who actually did live here at one point, then moved away, but their whole family's buried here, so they really want to be buried in this town. Or some of them are actually from the town of Dennis or the town of Chatham. We sell probably more to the town of Chatham than we do to the town of Dennis. And a lot of people from the town of Chatham who live right kind of near our East Harwich, they buy in Evergreen. A lot of them do. So I think because their families are all buried there, and they just want to be where their families originally came from. So I'm glad that we offer them that option. A lot of towns do not offer that option. I just think we had done 4 expansion projects. I think years and years ago, when Paul was on the commission, he knew that if we should take the abutting land to the cemeteries for expansion,
Yeah.
so that we didn't run out. And now some of the cemeteries I know that Dennis is starting to run out of space. So I think eventually, they're either gonna have to get more space, or I don't know what their other options are gonna be. A lot of them probably will start going with cremation walls and stuff like that to try to make up for space they don't have. But we're in great shape. We have plenty of space.
Now, is it easy to, do we have more space that we could go to if we had to? Other options?
We won't,
like that?
so, in Pine Grove, we have the section that's across the street that's totally undeveloped. We did the Kelly taking, so we have that whole additional area that we can expand on. We have another section in Evergreen, that's that wood line that abuts that neighborhood in the older section that we could expand on. And we still have all that land that we got when we found out that the neighbors were encroaching on the land in Mount Pleasant. We have all those grave spaces as well still that we have, and then we have South Harwich. So I think we're in really good shape, you know, for the future. And I think the way that most people are going cremation anyways, we might have to look at some of these sections and divide them smaller and make, you know, more cremation sections. We don't have a cremation section currently in Mount Pleasant. We only have cremation sections in Evergreen and in Island Pond. So these other cemeteries, we might start looking at a way to make those cemeteries have cremation sections for people who just want 2 cremains, you know what I mean? Just, they're smaller lots. So, when we do the expansions on, either in the Pine Grove area or in, Kelly, we might wanna look at maybe setting aside a small section to do cremation,
The 5x3 lot or whatever,
3x4,
3x4.
So
flat flush
we have to
markers.
identify that over there?
No, I think once you say cremation area, the cremation lots, I think you'd be fine. Because all the cremation lots in the cemetery, all the cemeteries, they're all the same size, 3 feet by 4 feet.
I'd still like to have all of the cemeteries in, you know, 8.5 by 11 PDF, like a guide
Yeah,
on the website.
yeah, okay.
I don't know how we can do that, but
Well, we can do
we
that.
don't really have anything.
So they used to have a map that planning did that had all the locations of all the cemeteries. And it was, so they had them in a green color. And then, so somebody could print them. And then it would have, but we could, you know, expand that and put their addresses and stuff like that
At least just the street names, the avenues,
within each cemetery.
right? And then maybe designate this is a cremation area.
Okay. Yeah, we could do that. So I could have maybe see if we could scan in, originally, we had scanned in a lot of the maps, but I bet you, Dan Pelletier over at the Water Department, he has the ability to digitize that information. So then we could then maybe highlight this section.
Yeah, but sometimes when you shrink, it gets,
Yeah, I
gotta be
think
done
they.
the right way.
I
yeah.
think they have the equipment though. And because when they were looking at doing water lines way back when, they used my ground penetrating radar stuff, and I scanned a whole bunch of streets for them and found where all of the different things are. They still owe us. They said they would do some mapping, so we could call in that favor.
And then with the
I
other
know he's a
question-
little busy right now, but maybe he'll have a little time.
Then the other question I had is, have you heard anything back from the South Harwich Meeting House about their tool shed that they wanted?
We have not heard back from them. I have a meeting with them on Thursday night. And that, I think they're gonna be discussing it at that. So they're having their board meeting Thursday night, which I am going to.
And then our next meeting is April 5th.
I've scheduled all the meetings in the book, so that way I don't have to go down each month. So I did it for the whole year.
So we're all done, okay.
Yes,
I will bring that up
Say
again.
April what?
April 5th, first Tuesday of the month.
yep.
I should be back on the 31st, unless I'm having too much fun, then I'll be back by the meeting anyway.
Okay, all right. If someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
So move.
That motion has been made yet.
You talked about having Link come in at some point? Do we still want to do that?
See, we already had Lynn come in though.
We did once,
Okay,
but we talked about, I think, last meeting, we talked about, oh crap, I can't remember if it was employees and stuff like that, what we want to ask them.
I'll look at the notes from my last meeting and we'll,
I'm not sure exactly what it was, to be
Okay.
honest. One thing I wanted to ask about was, if we do get in touch with him, do they use the V-plow that we bought? And if they don't, can we sell it? Because they came to us and asked us if we would get a V-plow for the cemeteries.
yeah, I don't know I don't know who is in charge of that, but I will ask that question.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
And then, are we gonna get caught up on the minutes to approve?
Yes, so I was actually at the
4
Board of.
meetings out.
I was at the Board of Selectmen meeting last night, and they were approving minutes from 2020. So I said, my commission's all, I'm behind on my minutes. They go, from when? I go, December. They're like, You can catch up. So I'll catch up on those, and I'll try to do at least 2 of them, if not 3 of them, for the next meeting, but,
Okay.
we'll work on those.
That question, the third question I had is just, it's gone, so. Do I have a motion to, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 10:15?
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
So be it. We're all set, Kayla?
And